Benjamin Netanyahu has indicated that negotiations with Hamas may be improving over a potential hostage release and ceasefire deal. What's the latest?
So there's significant chatter over the past couple of weeks. There's been a lot of teams going here, there, from Israel to Doha, back to Cairo, and there's significant negotiations happening behind the scenes. My estimation is, and my hope is that we are inching closer to an agreement. There are a few very important sticking points. The patrol of the Egypt-Gaza border, where the majority of arms were smuggled, the ability of Israel to maintain security control and protection of its citizens, and also the amount of Palestinian prisoners who will be released in return for the Israeli hostages. So these are the things that are being ironed out now. There's no doubt within the Israeli politic there is a majority view that supports the hostage release deal. I will note that the Prime Minister works within a quirky system of government, which is unicameral and elected by proportional representation, which means that he has multiple coalition partners, which he has to balance and manage in terms of not just his agenda vis-a-vis the war, but his agenda overall. So whilst these moving parts keep moving, my hope is that there is progress towards it. The final thing that I'll say is that if President Biden is going to stay in power, which looks like he will until November, or until January, until the handover, it will be an important part of his legacy to get a win on the foreign policy stage. And if he is able to assist in getting a negotiated truce between Hamas and Israel for the release of the hostages, I think that he can consider that to be a bit of a win and to etch that into the end of his legacy as he's walking out the door.
While these negotiations are taking place, families in northern communities in Israel that were forced to evacuate because of the war have been told that they're not able to return to school in their hometowns when school gets underway in September. And that is the reality for tens of thousands of families, isn't it?
Gabriella, you raised such an important point, and unfortunately this is one of the very important stories that is missed with all the fog of war that we've been reporting since October 7. And there is, since Hezbollah started its launch of rockets and drone attacks in the north on October 8, the day after Hamas launched its genocidal attack into southern Israel, about 75 to 90,000 residents of the north, a 5-kilometre buffer zone between Lebanon and Israel, have been evacuated from their homes. And they've been living in temporary accommodation in hotels ever since the 8th of October. So the news that they will not be able to, well, the school kids will not be able to return for the new school year that starts in September is very sad and very troubling. So there's a number of people that are displaced, and there's no view on the horizon as to when they can return. So the significant impact that it has on these people's lives, they've not only lost the ability to be in their homes, but the destruction in the towns in the north has been quite terrible. So some towns, at least 50% of the buildings have been damaged by the rocket fire, the daily rocket fire and the drone attacks coming from Hezbollah in the north. And essentially, and unfortunately, due to this conflict, certainly in the north, Israel is shrinking, and Israel has shrunk its territory by about 5 kilometers from today from October 8 until today. And that's obviously an untenable situation for Israel to maintain for the long term. So I think that it will impact the psyche of not just those residents who are displaced, but those in the whole country about the despair of the families unable to return. But it will exert certain pressures on the government to look to a different solution to the northern situation than they currently have on the table. And that could be either one of two things: either a diplomatic resolution with the assistance of the United States and others to get Hezbollah fighters to remove themselves from southern Lebanon and to retreat to the Litani River, which is part of a UN Security Council Resolution 1701, which ended the Second Lebanon War in 2006. Or the unfortunate other alternative is if a diplomatic avenue cannot be reached, then I do expect that the potential for a war in the north between Israel and Hezbollah is increasing in probability as the days go on.
It is just so heartbreaking to hear what the people of Israel are going through, and then seeing acts of anti-Semitism just displayed right around the world. Joel, Burnie, thank you so much for speaking to us here on Power Hour.
Thank you, Gabriella. Always a pleasure.